I'm Brent Goff. It's good to have you with us. One by one, European nations are gearing up to ban social media for children. The European Commission President, Ursula von der Leyen, says she supports an EU-wide age limit along the lines of the new Australian law that restricts social media usage for those under 16. Now, if you take a look at this map of Europe, Spain and France, which are in red, they are the only two countries that are introducing bans for children and young teens as of today. The countries in yellow are still considering action. Portugal is planning to implement parental consent for 13 to 16-year-olds. Italy, Denmark, Greece, and Slovenia want to restrict access to some social media platforms. And here in Germany, we're not seeing any concrete steps, but we understand the government is conducting research on the impact of social media on teenagers. Yeah, so it's France. It could become the first European country to impose a ban. Lawmakers are discussing a new law that would limit access to social media platforms for people under the age of 15. DW's Paris correspondent Lisa Louis has this report.
More of this and less of that is what the French government is aiming for with its new ban.
Let me send you a great video.
Social media platforms such as Instagram and TikTok could soon be off limits for these youngsters. They are not amused.
Social media is relaxing and fun. It allows us to be in touch with people and to get informed.
Most
of us will find a way around it by using a foreign server or our parents' ID card.
We make friends on social media, and we're old enough to regulate ourselves.
The government has triggered a fast-track procedure to get the new rules passed for the start of the next school year in September. This parliamentarian says the draft law will prevent social platforms from making profits at the expense of child health.
Our children's brain time is not for sale. These platforms prevent the brain from developing correctly, quite the contrary. Look at the impact of social media. Sleep disorders, attention disorders, difficulties with concentration. Our bill gives a clear framework to those educating young children. It'll be easier for them to ban the use of social media.
Protecting the young from social media has wide-ranging support in both houses of parliament. Still, some parliamentarians say the bill does not address the root problems.
We should ban the most predatory algorithms the platforms are using to monetize people's attention. And we should focus on better educating children with regards to social media, and their parents too.
Under the new rules, social media platforms would use third-party technologies to check the user's age. Other European countries are mulling similar thresholds.
These governments know that it will be possible to circumvent the new rules, but this is also a way of putting down a marker of saying social media no longer have free rein. These youngsters admit that spending their spare time offline might indeed have some perks.
I guess we will have to do more sports, play ping pong in the parks, football or volleyball.
When I come home, I normally watch a little video. Now I will have to read a book.
It's going to be hard at first, especially for those who are a bit addicted to social media, but we'll survive.
They're aware that too much time online isn't good for them. And yet, they can hardly imagine a future without social media.
All right, I want to go now to our correspondent, Jack Parrock. He joins us from Brussels. Jack, is France's ban, is it a feasible template that could be applied to the entire European Union?
Surely it could be. I mean, there's long been discussions in the European Union about how to do this. And what we're seeing is these countries now pressing ahead, France at the front. Back in November, members of the European Parliament, they voted overwhelmingly to try and press for an EU-wide ban on social media to follow that Australian example. And yeah, I mean, pressure is ramping up. The individual governments are now doing this, and potentially there could be a coordinated effort from from the EU coming.
We know that the president of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, she says that she would support maybe an EU-wide ban, perhaps for people under the age of 16. Is she doing anything to make that a reality?
Exactly. We know that she's in favour of it, but at the moment there is no proposal from the European Commission. And it would be the European Commission that would come forward off the back of that vote from the European Parliament, or being instructed by the national governments of the European Union to do so. As we see, those governments are starting to do this themselves. We know that Germany is considering it. Italy and Greece, Spain looks sort of on the precipice of bringing one in. Whether the European Commission decides that actually they should take a leading role in this is another matter. There's also a sort of side pressure on this that members of the Green Group in the European Parliament also called for the EU to start looking into creating its own social media that it can control and coordinate better than it can with these external social media platforms, many of them from America, but also from China.
Yeah, the United States certainly watching what is happening here in Europe. The French president, Emmanuel Macron, he has told reporters that he expects retaliation by the U.S. if any type of EU-wide social media ban is put in place. And we know that earlier this month, the House Judiciary Committee in Washington considered a report entitled "The Foreign Censorship Threat: Europe's Decade-Long Campaign to Censor the Global Internet." I mean, this could be the prelude of legislation in Washington, Jack. What do lawmakers in Brussels tell you about this?
Yeah, I mean, frankly, Brent, these battle lines are already drawn. They have been for some time, and that comes from the disputes over the Digital Services Act, the Digital Markets Act. These are European laws which control the way in which the big tech platforms operate in the European Union. Many of those tech platforms see that as essentially a tax on their operations by another name. And it's not only the Trump administration that is so ardently against these kind of laws, and this ban would be considered an additional form of that kind of law. It is also those big tech platforms in the United States. Macron, he's been speaking to the Financial Times today. The French president says, though, for Europeans, this is to say that our children's brains are not for sale, that our children's emotions are not to be monetized by major American or Chinese platforms. For him, he says, that is sovereignty, and that is a powerful Europe. This isn't only about the specific laws. This is about the current geopolitical context that we see ourselves in, Brent.
And let's come back for a moment to protecting young people. I know that the European Union is clamping down in other ways as well. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so we saw just last week that Digital Services Act that I mentioned. It was used against TikTok. They said that TikTok was in breach of their rules for addictive design, infinite scroll, all of these features that are not permitted under some of these laws. And it seems what this shows is that the European Union is going to start using some of these laws. We know that there are also investigations against Meta's platforms, and we could see the potential for those laws to be used again. As I say, the battle lines are drawn. The Americans will not be happy.
All right, Jack Parrock with the latest for us in Brussels. Jack, thank you. And our coverage continues now with Paul Rickter. He is an affiliate fellow with the Brussels-based think tank Bruegel. Paul, it's good to have you on the program. You were quoted, I think as recently as last month, as saying that the European Union can use the DSA, the Digital Services Act, to impact the way that children interact with social media. Is that happening already?
Yeah, so as of right now, the European Commission has not done any enforcement regarding the DSA and minors. However, in the summer in July, they came out with guidelines of their interpretations of the DSA. So the DSA is a new regulation that came out or was approved in 2022 and came in force in 2023 that requires platforms to mitigate risks of their platform design, including risks to minors. And so this requires platforms to share data with researchers and also do yearly risk assessments. However, in the past few years, this has been a very slow process, and the enforcement and implementation of this act has been lagging.
So
that has had a lot of criticism as well.
So, Paul, I want to be clear on this. So you're saying then if the law that's in place, the DSA, if that were enforced properly, maybe we would not need these bans on social media for young people?
Yeah, so the thing about the DSA, the regulation is written in a way that you are able to adapt to the current needs of the digital sphere. So because the digital sphere is changed, or the digital environment is changing so quickly, it was written in a way that there needs to be risk assessments every year, and there needs to be these risks need to be constantly mitigated. So if it were properly enforced, properly put into place, these risks that are for minors would be mitigated by platforms. In addition, sharing data would allow researchers to really look into the effects, and a lot of these platforms have been not sharing enough data, and actually the fine for X that came out in December was part of the enforcement of this DSA, and part of that fine was as a result of not being transparent enough with its data.
Okay, so it sounds like then there's an issue with enforcement of an existing law, and there's also perhaps an issue with what lawmakers know as opposed to maybe what their children know when it comes to being on the internet. Do you think that these bans, do they ignore teenagers' sometimes superior IT skills, that they know how to circumvent a ban? I mean, do these laws maybe not recognize that?
So in terms of circumvention, I think there is a lot of context in the digital world, across the world, where governments are trying to restrict content from minors. This is also in terms of gambling, in terms of adult video content. So I think there is a lot of innovation happening in this space to allow for a proper ban. So in terms of circumvention, that's one thing. In terms of actual digital literacy, clearly younger kids who grew up online have a higher digital literacy and are partially aware of the risks. However, at the same time, they are still developing and may not know how to deal with certain issues and addictive tendencies that these platforms might cause in users.
I mean, you know, your point is well taken there. Just because you're a digital native doesn't mean you're protected from all of the adverse effects that are possible on the internet. Also, people over the age of 16, adults, people my age, you know, we're all exposed to what could be the harmful effects of being online and social media. So what about a better media education in schools, also at home, public service announcements? What about looking at that instead of introducing bans, legislation that at the end of the day really may have no teeth?
Yeah, so and in addition to that, bans have another problem where just because you ban social media doesn't mean that they're going to be less or more protected, because when minors don't have access to social media, you also need to think of what are they going to substitute that with. So if they're still online but not on social media, what sites will they be going to? What will they be doing online? In those different digital spaces, will they be safer? Will they be will there be less risks? So these bans, it's not clear what effects they will have, or even if they are beneficial.
Yeah. Well, maybe the parents will get the message and insist that their children spend more time offline than online. We will see. Paul Rickter, good to have you on the show. We appreciate you sharing your insights. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, for more on this, let's bring in Stephan Dreyer here. He leads research on media governance at Hamburg's Hans-Bredow Institute and has been investigating EU digital laws affecting child safety. Thanks for being with us. Stephan, could France's push for an under-15 ban serve as a viable model for the rest of the EU?
Yeah, good morning, Terry. France is one example of several countries who are pushing forward an agenda that tries to implement national laws banning social media for under 15, under 16-year-olds. So, yeah, it is one of those prototypes that we currently observe. If you ask me, it rather has a symbolic effect because we run into European law questions when it comes to national laws that go against social media.
Now, restricting digital access for young people can also deprive them of learning opportunities and limit their freedom to explore and discover. Plus, kids are sure to find ways of circumventing a ban. What do you say to all that?
Well, of course, we know the positive effects that social media can have on children. So it rather depends on the individual use of those platforms rather than social media is bad or social media is good. It's a very individual aspect there. And what we know is that we see circumventions. Kids are tech savvy these days, so they just use a free VPN service on their smartphones and then log in from a country that does not impose any social media bans. Or they use adult IDs or use other platforms that are less protected. So it's a very ambivalent approach to just generally propose a social media ban without looking at the individual features of the users and the platforms that implement those features.
You already mentioned differences between national laws and EU law. Do you think restrictions on digital access for young people should be up to individual EU member states, or would it be better to have a uniform regulation across the entire European Union?
I'd say if there's a political will EU-wide, then the European level is the place to go to make those decisions because we have already a working framework, which is called the Digital Services Act. And that is a fully harmonizing act on the EU level that already targets the social media platforms. So if you want to embed or implement a social media ban, then you would opt for the European level. Otherwise, if you enact a national law prohibiting younger kids from using social media, you will always run into the aspect of the country of origin principle, which is which says that only the national law of your seat, of your company, is applicable to you. And as we know, all the big platforms are sitting in Ireland. So Irish law is applicable, not French law, not German law. So we need, if this is a political will, we need the regulation on the EU level.
What about the children's rights to free speech? Would a ban not infringe upon those more fundamental laws?
Yes, absolutely. And that is what I am missing. The discourse, the debate about child rights impact assessments, about human rights impact assessments. So social media, as I said, have also very positive functions when it comes to important information and communication. So those are central information and communication services for younger people, unlike tobacco or alcohol, for instance. So we need to consider those human rights and children's rights to get access to information, to get access to communication services. So these are parts of everyday media diets of children, and we have to consider that.
Stephan, thank you very much for talking with us today. That was Stephan Dreyer of the Hans-Bredow Institute of the Leibniz Institute for Media Research in Hamburg.
Bye, have a nice day.